Senator Hassan.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Ranking Member Burr, for this hearing, and thank you to all of our witnesses today for being here and for your service. Dr. Califf, I want to start with a question to you about the infant formula shortage. I want to follow up on comments that you made at the start of today's hearing. When you testified in front of this committee 3 weeks ago, you told me that within 2 months we should be, quote, beyond normal and with a plethora, close quote, of infant formula. Then, as Chair Murray noted, Abbott announced last night that its formula production plant in Sturgis, Michigan had flooded, which will, quote, likely delay production and distribution of new product for a few weeks, close quote. But despite that setback, as I understood your answer to Chair Murray earlier, you still hope to have a, quote, super supply, close quote, of baby formula on shelves in the next 2 to 3 weeks, which I take to mean more formula available than was typical prior to the Sturgis plant shutting down. So is that correct? And if so, how do you expect to achieve that goal with Abbott saying that the Sturgis plant will remain shut down for another few weeks?
Yes, that's correct with two assumptions. One is that the companies stick to the production data that they've given us, which they've already demonstrated they can do. The second is there's no other natural disaster like the unexpected one last night. But we have, one thing that's happened is we now get production data from all the companies involved. It adds up to a surplus relative to the needs that are demonstrated by the number of babies using formula over the last several years. So we should be over that number easily, and that doesn't count the fly formula formula coming in.
So what you're indicating to me is that other producers have been increasing their production.
Absolutely. All of the manufacturers in the U.S., remember there were only 4, which is another issue. They've all stepped up and they're running their plants 24/7, and the numbers show it.
Okay, so during the last hearing, you indicated that an interagency committee has developed a comprehensive plan to get this super supply on the shelves. Will you provide that written comprehensive plan to my office after this hearing?
We'll provide our plan, yes.
Thank you. And will your, and once we've looked at the plan, we may want to follow up with you all for a briefing. That works for you? Okay. Second question is to Dr. Fauci and Assistant Secretary O'Connell. Dr. Fauci, for nearly 2 years, I've been asking you when a COVID-19 vaccine for children under age 5 would be ready, and they are now nearly there. While vaccines have been available for older individuals for quite some time, the infant and toddler vaccine has been much slower, leaving many families with young children in a precarious position as they try to keep their kids safe. Do you anticipate that children ages 6 months to 5 years will be able to get their first dose by the end of this month?
Well, again, Senator, thank you for that question, but I do not want to get ahead of the advisory committee. You heard from my opening statement and that of Commissioner Califf, that in fact the VRPAC, which is the advisory committee to the FDA, made a recommendation, a positive recommendation for an emergency use authorization. The next step would be the CDC, in which Dr. Walensky's advisory committee will likely, in fact, likely, I'm sure they will, look at the data and make a recommendation. And then at the end of the day, it will be the director of the CDC's obligation and duty and to make a recommation. So I hope it does, but we never want to get ahead of the data. The data look very, very good, Senator. I mean, as you heard from Commissioner Califf, the data look really quite good. So I anticipate that that's going to happen, but it would not be appropriate for me to get ahead of my CDC colleagues.
Got it. And just briefly, Dr. Walensky, what does the timeline look like for that review?
We are going to review tomorrow and working on Saturday as well, because we understand the urgency of this for American parents and recognize that even on a holiday weekend, we need to be doing this to get it to American parents.
Right. Thank you. And Assistant Secretary O'Connell, how will the administration work to educate parents on the safety of this vaccine and help as many families as possible to get their youngest children vaccinated?
Absolutely. So assuming that the decisions come through as we may expect, the approval and recommendation, we have made available available 10 million doses for states to order, and the vast majority of them have placed those orders. That will allow us to ship out as soon as an EUA, should it comes, with the expectation that parents can begin getting their children vaccinated next week. So that is our intention.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair Murray.